We are at the memorial service of the late Chester Williams, and joining us right here on marawaTV is 1995 Rugby World Cup winning captain Francois Pienaar. Francois, you played with Chester Williams in the Springboks since 1993. It is a shock when you find out that a friend, a teammate has passed on, and I'm sure that the news must have touched your heart and yourself as a person.
Totally shocked. I was actually at Heathrow on my way back to South Africa when I got the message, and you just can't believe it. Fit guy, looked after himself. Friends were attending the launch of the beer that Chester was launching this year, and he was happy, he was fine, and then to get the news that he's no longer with us is just was unbelievable, really.
This is sadly the fifth member of the 1995 Rugby World Cup winning team that has passed on, 4 players and a coach. But Chester left a mark in the country. Like yourself as the captain, you were leading a great team. For yourself, if you could just sum him up as a person, as a teammate, as a father to his kids, how would you sum him up?
Dedicated to the game of rugby, loved it, dedicated to his family. I always remember Chester being first to training and one of the last to leave, and worked really hard at his skills. Humble, very humble, and a team man. You know, he wasn't the rebel rouser. He loved the game and he respected the game, and he had this nous of scoring tries. He was reluctantly the face of South African rugby in 1995 going into the World Cup. Then he got injured and was not going to play. Came back because of adversity against Canada, and I asked him on the Thursday night to tell the team what's happening in the country, because we were on the training pitches and in hotels, and he just gave the most incredible report of what's happening in our country and how rugby is uniting the nation. And then against Samoa he goes and scores 4 tries. And then later that year against England, actually I think that was one of his best games I've seen him play, when we faced England at Twickenham. Also scored a brace of tries. Yeah, we are shocked, and we will miss him dearly.
Francois Pienaar, thank you so much for joining us right here on marawaTV.
Thank you.
With me is Lionel Langenhoven, the assistant coach for UWC Rugby, and Lionel has worked with Chester Williams for 4 years. Lionel, it is a sad time for many in the rugby fraternity, especially for UWC. How would you like Chester to be remembered? What are the fond memories that you have of Chester Williams as a head coach?
Okay, first and foremost, I don't want to remember him as an ex-player or as a coach. I want to remember the person behind the coach. Chester was humble, he was honest, he'd always make time for the players in need, the less fortunate people. He make an extra effort to make sure that these guys are secure, have the education in place, get something behind their name, and then the rugby came. So for me, Chester, people doesn't know the real Chester, because he was an absolute workaholic, never ever stopped working, and what he stood for was some great values like discipline, trust, and respect, and that is what our success was based upon.
Do you happen, for yourself growing up, Chester Williams was one of those players that you looked up to because he was ahead of you and he made a mark in South African rugby. For yourself as a rugby player, how did he influence your style of play as a rugby player? And what did you look up to him as a player, and what will you remember him as?
I think for me, Chester is a pioneer of greatness. If you ever think of, for us to World Cup 95, a lot of people say Jonah Loma, but for us, a young boy that grew up in Western, a coloured boy from a small community, our hero was Chester, because we could relate to him. He made a dream possible for us. We could see him playing on TV, and that made everything for us, playing for the Springboks, a reality. And I think what he has done for me, the style I took from Chester was his toughness. Him together with Tinus Lanier, who also passed away earlier, they were tough guys, and that was the thing I liked about them. There was a lot of flair that came on later on, but the toughness they had, and luckily I read an article that Chester was in the army and in the navy, and that made him that tough. So I think, but also then off the field, he was a gentle giant, always had words of encouragement, always backed us. Newspaper, whenever there was articles, backed the coloured boys or any player that was good. So I think from that point of view, it was not just a pioneer for us, that someone we could look up to, and someone that paved the way for us before 95 and from 95 onwards, but also someone that we could that was always there for us off the field, that we could have a chat with, would always encourage us and would always give us wise words of wisdom.
It's obviously a really sad day, the loss of Chester Williams. I think for many out there, especially for me growing up, and I was reminded of it the other day by my grandma. All I wanted to do was playing rugby in the streets with your mates. You want to be like Chester Williams, and he really opened the door for so many of us, of players of colour who wanted to rugby and who dreamt of becoming Springboks or even provincial players. He was the guy who made it possible and made us all believe that we can do that. And obviously now that he's gone, it's really important for us to continue on the legacy that he left off. And I think, for me as a sportsman, as a rugby player in particular, everyone spoke today about at the memorial service about how humble he was and how all he wanted to do was better the youth and give back to the people that helped him get to where he is. And I think that's something for me to really look towards and look to carry on, like I said, carry on the legacy that the great Chester Williams left behind. And I think if every single one of us as rugby players, not just rugby players of colour, but rugby players in a whole, the rugby playing community can strive towards doing something like that, we'll all make this environment a better one for every single one of the youth.
Basically, Chester Williams was my first boyhood hero, sports hero, and he was somebody that we looked up to. And then years later, when I started covering rugby, actually our paths crossed again, which was for me wonderful. Having a guy like that in your corner, having always been available for advice and so on, and then covering his journey from basically playing and then into coaching. His death came as a real shock for us, but I mean his legacy will live on forever in this country. I think it's just a very humble man, a guy who had respect for everybody, from the CEO to the car guard, and it's just a guy that was very lovable, a community man. He was a family man. I think that was probably one of his things after basically stopping playing, is that spending time with his family and spending time with just the people around him, and I think that made him a very special man.
Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to announce that President Cyril Ramaphosa, with the powers vested in him in terms of the Constitution, has declared Chester's funeral an official funeral. And we want to thank the President for that. We were great friends. He used to love to make potjie and a braai at the same time. And he used to make big pots because Maria doesn't have a small hand. She always gives you a plate this high. And so we will sit at the braai, and his favorite, PJ Powers, he will play all PJ songs. And until I would say, Jessie, can we sing something else? And then both of us loved this song called O ek wil huis toe gaan na mama toe. Die rivier is voor my trane rol. 'n Bokkie wat vanaand by my wil hê, sy kan maar lê, ek is 'n los lampie. So, he was a dear friend. He was like a son to me. There's one thing that Chester and myself, we never spoke politics. Because, I always just wanted to have that positive energy and to enjoy his friendship.
I want to thank you all sincerely for standing by Chester and supporting him, because without him, without you, you could never have succeeded. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and you all made him strong. And to every single one of you players, I want you to know that Chester loved every one of you. You were his life, and you will always be his life. And he would like to see you succeed. And I want to urge you to never lose that fire and the passion, and remember what he taught you about teamwork, and to continue to strive for excellence. And I know that he is up there watching us right now, and I know that all your hearts are broken like ours are. But as us as a family, we want you to know that we'll always be there to support you as a team. And let's keep his legacy alive and continue to celebrate his life he would want us to. And once again, please remember that he loved you, and we as a family will watch you succeed the Varsity Cup, and we know that you will all go from strength to strength, and we salute you all as a family, and thank you.
Joining us on marawaTV is PJ Powers. She needs no introduction, but PJ Powers, you knew Chester Williams as a being, you knew the family, and your music was close to his heart. Mm-hmm. He loved the music. Listening to that memorial, the wife saying that is the music he used to play at the brides, at the boykies. Performing here, your music that unified, it was a celebration. As a musician, as PJ Powers, your feelings towards Chester Williams no longer being here, and the mark that you've left in his life and in his family.
Well, I mean, I think the feeling that I have with Chester no longer being here is pretty much the same as everybody's, which is it's with great sadness. And I know that he was a legend and a hero, and he was a world famous rugby player, but he was also a man that really supported me. He came to all my shows after him and Maria came to a lot of shows that I did. Every time I was in Cape Town, I would make contact, and so that's how I feel. I think everybody, there was a lot of love in this room today, and it's nice to feel at a time in South Africa where we really need to get in touch with the love inside us. So once again, Chester spearheads us, and I no doubt it'll be the same at Boland and at Newlands. He spearheads us with that very, very thing that we need right now, that we are unaware of that we need, and which is to give and receive love, you know. So Maria is a gorgeous, wonderful, resilient human being. You saw her stand up 4 days after her husband has passed and make a great speech today, with her legs wobbling and her hands. And I have great admiration for that. And I'm just extremely happy that I was able to come down here and honor Chester in the little way that I can.
What a way when people are mourning, and it is a memorial. Your music touched so many at the memorial service. Your two songs today was Touch, It Was Felt, Jabulani, became a celebration right here in the Memorial Hall.
Yes, well, it turned in Jabulani is no longer Jabulani, it's now Chester Williams. You know, so I was glad that his name was the last thing spoken in Jabulani. The crowd said Chester Williams. And that, I think, World in Union was harder because it reminds us of such a great time, and just seeing Francois in the audience and seeing some of the other rugby guys, and just, it was harder. Jabulani, because of the nature of the song, and because of Minister DeLille, or Auntie Pat, and Maria and the children in the front, standing up and dancing, gave me some breathing space, I must be honest, because I was quite stifled by the end of World in Union. But today is not about me, you know, it's about Chester and his family and his and the people that he loved and what he gave.
PJ Powers, thank you so much for joining us right here on marawaTV, and thank you for being that musical icon in Chester Williams' life, his family's life.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, and it was my honor.
No, we remembered that Chester being selected for the Springbok team, it was just a great eye-opener for us in such a way that we realized that we can play this game. And Chester, you know, so appropriately demonstrated the words of Brenda Fassie's song, Vulindlela, opened the way. And he opened the way for so many youngsters that came after him. And when he was selected for the last Springbok I happened to be the Springbok manager, and he played, and we spent many a night together just reminiscing about his past and how he got to the top. And he had a fantastic story to tell, and we're saying goodbye to a real legend today, a man who opened the way for our people. And all I can say is thank you, Chester. You've made your mark on the world stage of rugby.
Well, joining us on marawaTV is Ryan Robson. He's the son of Chester Williams. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. A beautiful memorial service. You could really feel the emotions from the crowd in the hall and from the family. It must have been an emotional time. I mean, your dad is long remembered for his exploits on the rugby field. A great man, but you know him as a great dad too.
Yep, without a doubt. Yeah, one thing that I did mention during the ceremony is just, the fact that he's a very approachable person. So people wanted to know what my account of him was, but I think we all knew him. He was a very down-to-earth person. So he wasn't someone that kept himself on a pedestal. So yeah, I think hopefully that's how everyone remembers him.
How do you remember him as a dad? What are those fond memories? If you look back at it right now, I remember your dad taking you to play soccer, for example, as a junior.
Yeah.
But what do you remember your dad, Chester Williams, the dad?
Well, honestly, so many things. He was a very supportive person, very, as I said, down to earth. Even though he had achieved so much, he could, I guess, put himself in your shoes and sympathize with your goals and what you wanted to achieve. Very motivated man. He was just always there for us. Not necessarily always physically, having worked overseas or not having been able to get opportunities here, but he did that to support the family. So yeah, just a definite family's man. Definitely set a great example as to what a father should be like, and just how to look after the family.
Right now, your dad is sadly no longer with us, and no longer with you as a dad. What is the one thing, if you could speak to him right now, what would you say to him or ask him?
Yeah, I wouldn't ask him anything, certainly not in front of everyone, but what I would say is that we're obviously very proud of him, everything that he's achieved in his lifetime. He's a phenomenal human being. I think anyone would be extremely grateful just to achieve a quarter of what he achieved in his lifetime, and a short lifetime that it was. So we were always very proud of him, what he did with the Springboks, what he did in Romania, what he's done with UWC. He was very, very proud of. They were his motivation. Yeah, just immensely proud of him, and we'll obviously miss him, every day, for forever.
From all of us, from South Africa, from all of us, condolences to you and your family, Ryan.
Thank you so much. Oh, and one thing that I did want to say is the funeral is on Saturday, and it is free to the public. We specifically did it on Saturday so that it would be easy for everyone to attend. So if anyone is in two minds about attending, please don't even question it. Everyone's welcome, and the more the merrier.